Well, you know what? It's been about 5 years since we've last seen one another, and I've really missed doing this. And it's not because we didn't want to do it. Things have stopped us from doing it, COVID and time. But welcome to Colonial Manor Realty presents Real Estate with the Pros. I'm Bobbie Botticelli. Today is March 29th, 2025, and I'm telling you that date for a reason, because if you're watching this a month from now or a year from now, and what I'm telling you today is most likely not going to hold true when you watch it. So I thought, every time you see a real estate show, people tell you, take the magnets off your fridge and the clutter off your counter and put plants on your front stairs and have the house staged. And, you've heard that enough times. I thought I would give you a little bit of history because people are very confused right now about the real estate market. And so aren't we as realtors. We certainly don't have it nailed down either. So I started in the business January 6th, 1986. And when I came into the business then, it was fairly active. We had two disclosures, a lead paint disclosure and a urea formaldehyde foam insulation disclosure. Today, we have so many disclosures that we have to cut trees down to fill them all out. And it really has gotten to be a bit much for you, the buyer or the seller, and us, the realtor. We have a brand new disclosure that came this last August that has to disclose the disclosure. And I know that sounds funny, but it really does. You have to know before we even talk to you. We have to let you know that we're either representing you as the buyer or you as the seller. Quite understandably, you'll look at us and say, no, I don't want to sign a contract. I just want to talk to you. And that's all we want to do, too. We just want to talk to you. But the law tells us that you have to sign this. It isn't a contract, but you have to sign this form telling you who we represent, you as the buyer, the seller, or no representation. So that's just one thing. The other thing is, when I first came into the business, when you showed a property, the buyers made a decision then and there. They really didn't get days to decide. Today, a lot of realtors will list the house on Thursday and all offers are due by Monday or Tuesday. I'm not real happy about doing that. I'm not comfortable with that. It's fine. There's no right and wrong way, and others that do it, that's fine if they're comfortable. The reason I don't like to do it is because, there's a couple of reasons. One reason is buyers don't want to get into what they call the fray. They feel like, I'm seeing it today and I rushed out because I really want to see this house and I'm putting my best foot forward, and why should I wait for everybody else who comes the last minute to see it? And then there's a whole bunch of offers. I'm going to give you a good offer today. On the other hand, the seller feels, well, if you're going to have a good offer, let me get a whole bunch more good offers, and maybe it'll be more. Not necessarily. There's an old saying, your first offer is generally your best offer, and it still holds true. So that's one of the main reasons I don't like to hold the offers. The other reason is, hey, something else could come on tomorrow, Mr. Seller, and that buyer will go by that, and you're going to miss them. On the other hand, if your realtor feels comfortable doing it that way, then that's how you do it. When you hire a realtor, it has to be somebody that you're comfortable with, whether it's somebody you've known forever, you've just met, it doesn't matter. What does matter is you want a higher experience. You want to make sure that realtor, knows the town, knows the area that you're going to buy or sell in, can answer your questions, and if they don't have the answer, is willing to get the answer for you. That's very important. When my second offer that I ever took, I was in the business 2 days. or 3 days maybe. The first day, actually, I sold the house. So maybe it was my second or third day. And it was a little condo in North Reading, and I remember it was so cold. It was January. And I had to take the offer on the hood of my car because when I showed it, there was a line in front of me showing it. And everybody's outside taking offers on the hood of their cars because then we had to line up and present it. Oh, yes. We presented offers in those days. You had to sit there, the seller's broker and the sellers, we sat and we presented. And let's talk about snail time and snail mail. It wasn't like today, everything, there was no internet, of course. There was no fax, there were no scans. So if you had an offer and the buyer or the seller said, gee, I'd like my attorney to see it, and that attorney lived in Wellesley, guess what? We're driving to Wellesley, or we're mailing it to Wellesley. However, if you're mailing an offer to Wellesley and somebody else has an offer that isn't getting mailed out of town, they're going to get the offer and you're not. So we were, as realtors, driving all over the place. Today, nothing like that. You do dot loop, you sign electronically, you send your check electronically, everything is electronically, so it's very fast. So now I want to speak to you buyers who have been in your homes 25, 30, like me, 40 years. It was nothing like this. 40 years ago, I was so happy to get a 12-year loan for 12%, and I thought I died and went to heaven because rates in the 80s were up to 19%. Yes, the homes were less money, but also your salaries were less money, so it really is all relative. So to get a rate of 12%, I was coming from a rate of 8.5%, and they went way up. So now, those of you who have had your nice low rates of 2.5%, 3%, 4%, and you're looking at the rates today, 6.5% and 7%, you're saying, well, why would I make that move? I have to wait for the rates to come down, and maybe I can save some more money. No, you can't. You can't save fast enough to catch up to the market. I'm going to give you an example. Last year I sold a house that they bought and closed on in July for $1.1 million. They closed on it, then they sold it because something came up and they had to sell it, and they sold it 6 months later for $50,000 more. Now, for those of you who didn't buy that house in July, and I say it because there were a couple who didn't, and then turned around and bought it in December, they paid $50,000. Did they save $50,000 in 6 months? Not at all. And I just recently closed on a property that I gave them a market analysis in August of 24. I told them the house was worth $1.2 million. In February, they called me back in to list it, and I said, no, you've gone up. Your house is now worth $1.35 million. And in 3 days, they got $1.525 million. That's a huge difference. It's $375,000 from the original that I had told them. Could people have saved that? No, they didn't. And that's on a large home. But we have smaller homes too. We have smaller homes that 2 years ago we would have said they were worth $699, and now they're selling for $950. You can't save that fast, can you? What we recommend is don't marry your interest rate. Marry the house. You can always refinance. The rates will come down. The houses, well, I don't know that they're going to come down. I don't think so. I think they're going to level off. I hope nothing ever happens like it did in 2007 when people were underwater and those that had to sell their homes had to sell them for less than what they paid for. Actually, they had to bring money to the closing because they had to sell them for less than what their mortgage was. So really think about those types of things. And for Mr. and Mrs. Seller who have been in your home, all these years, it's hard. I understand it's hard. It's hard for you to understand. If I wasn't in the business, I certainly wouldn't understand it. But it's hard for you to understand the whole process. I'm speaking with a seller now that I sold them their house 20 years ago, and he said, Bobbie, tell me what to do. He says, it's been 20 years. I've never sold the house before. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I'm walking them through it. In only 20 years, they're so flabbergasted about how things have changed. We have seller's disclosures. Yes, I already said we had lead paint. We have agency disclosures. We have disclosures to state whether, when we show your house, you have recording devices in your property. And back when I first started, we, as all of us realtors in this area, only represented the seller. So whether you were the listing broker or the selling broker, you still represented the seller. That's not true anymore. You have to either represent the buyer or the seller, and you can do dual agency, which means you could represent both. Now, how do you represent both? Well, that is a fine line. But I generally say, you have 2 children, and you want to keep peace between your children. And one wants A and one wants B, so you try to get between them and make it C so it all works out. And that's how I feel when I represent both sides. I can't tell the seller what the buyer says, and I can't tell the buyer what the seller says. However, I can come between them and make it peace. And when I say peace, listen, we've had people fight over a statue that's on the front lawn that the seller wanted to take, and the buyer said, you never told me, and I want to keep the statue. I mean, silly things, and so you have to mediate between there. But there are lots of things that we can do as representing both the buyers and the sellers. Not all realtors feel comfortable doing that, and that's, again, perfectly fine. All realtors have to do what they are comfortable with, and you have to deal with your realtor as you're comfortable with. There are so many different financing programs out there, and I'm asked all the time about first-time buyer programs. And yes, there are first-time buyer programs, and there's some helpful ones out there. I'm also asked about VA loans. I say this with a heavy heart. Yes, there are VA loans. However, in this market, a VA loan is a tough loan to get a seller to accept, because that seller is looking for a nice, clean offer. They're looking for the cash buyer. And by the way, let me explain to you. A cash buyer doesn't necessarily mean they're going to show up at the closing with a briefcase full of money. No, some are going to have cash, in which case they have to have proof of funds, has to be shown so that the listing broker knows that it's there. But a cash offer, or it could also mean they're not going to make a contingent on financing. Are they going to get financing? Mm-hmm. They are. However, should they not get financing? That's the chance the buyer is taking, not the seller. Now remember, the buyer traditionally is putting 5% down on that purchase and sales. And if there's no financing contingent on that purchase and sales, and the buyer doesn't get financing, they're subject very strongly to losing that 5%. So they're not going to come and say, I'm not going to have a financing contingency unless they absolutely know they can get that financing. Inspections, we never tell people not to have an inspection. That is up to them. I know everybody is out there saying, yeah, we're not going to do a home inspection. because it makes them look better in the eyes of the seller. Again, that's up to you, the buyer. There are ways to get your offer accepted that no, we don't all have certain tricks. I have certain tricks that I can get your offer accepted, and I know other realtors that have tricks. They're not necessarily tricks. We have methods. We know how to get your offer accepted because we know how to put your best foot forward, and that's what's important, to put your best foot forward. But we always recommend that you think about no contingencies. And a lot of you don't use them, and that's fine. I'm going to tell you right now. I've sold to my kids, my relatives. They've all gone in with no contingencies. I've bought no contingency. But we know what we're looking at. We know what we can afford. We know construction. So if you have someone that knows construction and can look at the house with you, hey, we even do pre-inspections. So do an inspection before you even put an offer in. And then you put your offer in contingent on that. Now, it's good and bad. I mean, if it costs you $700 for an inspection and you find out it's not good, then you're not going to buy the house, and you're going to say, well, I just wasted $700. No, you didn't. You just saved yourself buying a money pit, so it was worth the $700. See, I wrote down a couple of things that I wanted to try to remember to tell you, and I will talk to you about having the house cleaned out. Listen, we all think our house is a mansion, right? We all think everything in the house is perfect. And, we love the drapes, we love the furniture, we love the old drugs and all that. But when you're selling it, it has to be, the world has turned into a minimalist world. So they don't want our knickknacks and all that. And you know that. You've heard this and heard it and heard it. But it's so funny. We'll go into a home and Mr. and Mrs. Seller, they're a senior couple. I'm a senior couple, single. But we'll go into a home and they'll say, I'm asking them how old is the kitchen, or how old is this, or it's brand new. Oh, it's new, the kitchen's new. Great, what year did you put it in? 1998. Well, to them, that's new because it wasn't there in 1960 when they bought it. But it's not a new kitchen. And then we have to explain to them, your appliances are 20 years old, 15 years old. It's not new anymore. So we have to tiptoe around sometimes to let people know that that's not as valuable as you think. Oak cabinets, people don't want oak cabinets. Everybody wants painted cabinets or white cabinets. Staging is a big thing today. You hire a stager, that stager comes in. It can cost you a little money, but that money comes back to you, and that's really important that you do it, because you'll realize could be tens of thousands that you realize because you had the home staged. I'm trying to think what else I want to talk to you about. We're going to talk about my next show, by the way. I'm going to have a banking specialist to talk to you. But I didn't want to do that this time. Senior citizens, Mr. and Mrs., we all know we're going to go, and one is going to go before the other. My suggestion is, if you're thinking of moving, downsizing, going south, whatever the reason, do it while you're both still together. Because if you do it afterwards, the biggest thing that I hear from seniors who do it afterwards is when they move and Mr. will say, gee, Mrs. was never here, so I I don't have the scent of her clothes or her perfume or seeing her sitting on the couch watching TV, because that was in the other place. So it's nice to set up a homestead where you'll still have some memories. Also, I believe that it's now $2 million for your estate, for your estate tax in Massachusetts. Well, with the price of homes today and investments, $2 million's very easy to get to. So when one or the other goes, you have $500,000 as a deduction. For the two of you, it's $250 apiece. But if one goes, then you only have $250. And I am not an accountant, a CPA. I'm just giving you a little hint that you should speak with your CPA and see if it would affect you, because that $250 could mean the difference in you paying capital gains on that. So there's another reason that you should sell now. And speaking of selling now, 39 years I've been in this business. And I have 36 years, my partner and I opened Colonial Manor. Gosh, when we opened Colonial Manor 36 years ago, we opened in April. By December, the market had crashed. And for the next 2 years, we had so many houses on the market. Remember the Globe? Oh, yeah. We used to have columns and columns and columns of houses in the Globe, and we'd go to the CVS in Woburn and get the Globe at 8:45 on Saturday nights so that we could see the new things coming on. And we couldn't give houses away. And in those days, houses went for, it was nice if it went for asking. They mainly went for under asking. Today, asking would be a gift beyond. We're getting literally hundreds of thousands above asking. We're getting 5, 10, 20 and above offers because it's supply and demand. So if you're thinking of selling your house in the next year, think about doing it now before the market changes, because the market does change. There's no question. I've been through 3 cycles in my years, so we're due for another cycle. We've been in a very strong cycle since, 2015, 2016. So it just happens. Nobody plans it. We don't know when it's going to happen. It just happens like somebody pulls a switch. So if you're thinking of selling, do it now. If you're thinking of buying, do it now, because the prices are still going up. And again, we don't know when they're going to stop. I do recommend, if you're thinking of selling, to start this process. You're going to label all your items in your home, and you're going to keep it, you're going to throw it, you're going to donate it to charity, or you're going to give it to a family member. Start doing that now. It takes a long time. I just listed a home, and they have a lot of that to do. And they thought that, we're going to get it done this weekend, they said to me this week. We're going to get it done because we have all sorts of family members coming over, and they're going to help us do this. And when I saw them yesterday, they said, they heard it was going to be a crappy weekend, and they don't want to be out in the rain or whatever, so they're not coming. So now they're really sitting there with a dumpster in the driveway, and just a husband and wife and 2 young kids, and they're going to try to figure this out. So start doing it now. You need to declutter. If you're going to give it to an organization, the organization needs time, like Mission of Deeds. You can't call Mission of Deeds today and think they're coming tomorrow. They're not. You have to give them time because they're all volunteers. They got to set up the truck. They got to get their volunteers. And so you need to know what you're doing there. And once you start getting all of that out of there, then be it us as your realtors who will come in and help you stage it, or you get a professional stager. It's much easier to do it at that point because it's less cluttered, and you will feel better about doing it. I'm guilty. I'm a collector. Oh, it's neat. everything's in beautiful cabinets, but I collect. And I'm going to start one of these fine days to decide to start, and I have, by the way. I say to my grandkids, I have 7 grown grandchildren, and I say, all right, who wants this? Well, they pick out what they want, but they don't want it yet because, well, none of them have bought homes yet. They're renting, they're in rentals, but none have bought homes yet. So I told them, well, hurry up, let's get you a house so I can get some of this stuff out of my place. So that's it for today. It's a gloomy day, but we need some rain at some point. We're getting into spring eventually. And I thank you for joining me. I like to do these little quick 30-minute segments. And I appreciate you taking the time. And think about me when you're out there thinking about buying and selling. I'd love to come speak with you. I'd like you to have a nice day. Thank you.